What's up guys, it's Fullsnack Developer here, and today we're going over helpful tips and tricks in Illustrator. So I'm going to be moving along. Hopefully I'll be able to pack in as much as I can. I'm going to try and explain every little trick that I do along the way, so it's going to be a little fast paced, but hopefully you guys will be able to get a bunch out of this. So the first tool that I'm going to go over is the Pathfinder Tool. This is the one I probably use the most, and I love it the best. So let's go ahead and let's just get started. Let's get an object on the screen here. I'm just pulling out a square. Right away, I'm going to give you a little tip on this one. If I wanted to change the color of this, this needs to be selected forward here. So when this color is behind, this is the fill color back here. I'm not going to be able to do anything to it. So if I wanted to add a gradient or change the color, it's pushed to the back. You can see that it's behind the stroke here. So if I wanted to add the gradient, all I have to do is click it, brings it to the forward, and now you can see here that I'm able to apply color and modifier to it. So that's just a quick little tip on being able to, you ever get that, like, oh, why can't I do it? That's why. So I don't want a border for this one. I'm just going to hit this button here to negate the color on that one. All right, so I'm going to get another shape on the screen. Let's just put this circle here. We're going to change the color so you can see the difference. Let's make it grays for now. Okay, so I got these two shapes, and let's say that I wanted this circle to be contained within this square. So there's a couple methods of it, but since we're talking about the Pathfinder tool, we're gonna go over these options here. What I would do is I would take the shape that I want it to be contained in. I'd hit Command C. I'm on a Mac. Command C, and then Command F. Now it doesn't look like anything happened yet, but really what happened is actually it got pasted in front of this object here. So you can see there, I pasted exactly in place over top of the other object. So I'm just going to undo, and you can see it's still there. And now I'm going to select the circle, and I'm going to go over here into the intersect. Intersect is going to give us what we want. So basically it takes the overlapping area and it just removes the other parts. So there's a couple options. We could merge it into one. We could remove the circle from the square. We could just accept what's like remove only the intersection. But what we want to do is actually take the intersection. So we're just going to click on that, and that's going to give us our circle that's contained in. And that's basically just the Pathfinder tool. There's a couple other options that you could do with these to, like the opposite of this one. See how the circle is subtracted from the square. Now, depending on the layering of this, so I'm just going to pop over and show you guys here. In the layer file, you can see that I have my two rectangles and my circle here, and actually this changes the Pathfinder tool. Let's say that I bring this first square here to the very front. So what I'm going to do is, and this is good that you're looking at my layers here. I'm going to go Command Shift and then forward bracket, and you're going to see here that this square jumped all the way to the top of the layer, on top of all the other layers, and that is going to affect the Pathfinder, like I said. But a quick tip on layering. So let's say let's just throw some more objects in here all over on top of each other. Let's say we select the gray circle. If you see before, what I did was Command Shift forward bracket brings it all the way to the front. And as you can imagine, to push it all the way to the back, we go Command Shift back bracket, or left bracket, and that will push it all the way to the back. Now, if you want to go layer by layer, what you can do is Command, and instead of hitting Shift, we'll just go Command right bracket. and you can see there on the side, it's kind of like tabbing through the layers. And again, you can do the left bracket to push it back, and you can play around with that. So that's just a helpful tool, helpful trick for navigating your layers and stuff if you want something to be behind something. Okay, so let's get rid of all these circles here. And then, so you're gonna see here, we have the circle on top of the square, and when we select the two, the circle is subtracted from the square. Now, let's say that the square is in front of the circle, and we click that same button. What happens is the top layer is subtracts from the layer below. So what this button does is actually minus the back, minus the front, minus the back. So that explains itself there. So if we wanted the same effect as before, we click this one, and the circle is subtracted from the square. So that's the Pathfinder tool, and in a gist, it's really what I like to use for shading. It's really helpful. So say I have like a unique shape here, some wonky, funky thing, and I want to, let's just give it a color here. Yeah, sure. So say I want to add a shadow. So I'm gonna be like, yeah, the shadow's coming around here. You can check out my other tutorials for how to do shading, how to do cell shading, and my art style kind of thing. But so now we got this shape that we blocked out. Here, I'll change the color here. And underneath, you can see outlined there is our original shape. What we do is select the original shape. We go Command C for copy, and Command, I believe that's paste in front, Command F. And now we have our two shapes. We select the one that we kind of roughed out here, and we go intersection. And now you can see here that we kind of got this, we got the shape that fits perfectly inside of it. But now, if you wanted to do shading or stuff, things like that, what I often do is, you can select your black, but that's a little harsh. You want your colors to come through. You can go up into the top here. You can change opacity. You can drop it down, and as you can see there, it becomes opaque, and then you get this kind of shading thing. And you can layer it. That's what I do for my illustrations. Is you'll often see that I just kind of like block out a line where I want the shadow to go, and then I'll just chunk it out. And again, copy, paste in front, select both, intersection, and now here's a little tip. I'm just pressing I. There's a lot of commands going on here, and it makes working a lot faster. But I just pressed I. It gives me the eyedropper tool, and then I select whatever object I click on. The properties are transferred to this object. So I'm clicking on this opaque shade here, and it changes the opacity to 24, changes the color to black, and then it kind of shows through. So yeah, that's the eyedropper tool. I use that all the time. Yeah, so adding gradients. Okay, so I often use a gradients to kind of add to shading of my objects, and let's get right into that. What I first do is right over in the toolbar here. You can press G, or you can just click it over here. But often people try to right away click and drag, and that's not going to work. Clearly, it's not working. What you have to do first is click the layer. Just click once, stationary, and it'll automatically generate a black and white gradient over top of it. Up here in the corner, if you you can see here, you can select some coloring or whatever, texture or whatever. You can select your fill here, but that gives you kind of a general, and you're like, oh, I want to change the colors. And again, once you click, you're free to click around, click and drag. It's malleable. It knows that that's the area that you want to turn into gradient. So now, oops, drop my pencil. Now I want to adjust the gradient here. So I'm going to go over onto this panel here, and down here there'll be a gradient panel. Now if you don't see this, and this works, this goes for any of the panels, if you don't see them right away and you can't find them, what's easy to go is just click window up here, come down here, I have the Pathfinder open, I have the gradient open, but here's all of your windows that you can use to open up. So often character isn't open if you're working with typography, sorry, not character, type character, and here's all your paragraph and tabs like that. So these are all of your panels here if you ever can't find one. And a little tip while we're in here for those that sometimes you can mess up your workspace. What you can do is go over here and you can actually just select one of any of these layouts. They switch up the layout to a different style, typography. If we click on that, it gives you the characters panels over here, and they kind of just rearrange things a bit. But if you ever get like lost and things are messed up, you can always go back to Essential Classic, and then everything will go back to normal. Yeah, okay, so we're adjusting our gradient here. We got our gradient panel open, and this is where we can make the adjustment to the gradient. Again, a little tip, if you have deselected it and you see over here, I can make adjustments to the gradient all day long, but you're like, why isn't it working? You got to make sure that you select it, and then right away you'll see that it starts responding. So just make sure if you're ever adjusting it and you're not wondering why it's not changing, you have to make sure that you just select it. So okay, let's go in here and you can choose some colors. I have it set on RGB right now. It could be CMYK, depending on which settings you have here. If you're doing, for computer, RGB works. If you're doing for CMYK, that's usually for print and how printers process colors. And a little tip on this, I'm throwing tips all over the place. CMYK will change the color. It's going to be a little duller. RGB and computer is very vibrant, but when printing out, it gives you a little duller of a look. So don't panic. You're probably in CMYK. If that happens and you want to switch out of it, let's see if we can get it here. Go into document color mode under File, and you can change it to CMYK. You can also tell right up here. I'm in RGB here. If you're in CMYK, obviously it would say CMYK there. So that's just a little tip on color. Okay, gradient. So yeah, you can select some colors here. This is the lighter half, so maybe we'll make a light orange. Sure. Go over to this one. You can also open up your color swatches there too. You can choose from any one of those. Sure. There we go. Okay, so that's how you get gradient. Now, you can also, manually changing the angle of it. If you're like, oh shoot, doing this is kind of clunky, right? All you have to do is over here, there's a revert gradient. You can switch it around as much as you like. Adjust the location of the gradient transition. You can also control that here. Another thing you can do too is you can actually select, once you've selected the color, you can change the opacity of it. So it's going to transition from full 100% opacity of this red down to 0 opacity of this yellow. 10%. But I'll put it back to 100. That's just a little tip. To add another color in here, you can just click and it'll add another swatch, and you can move it around and get it closer and add as many as you like. So that is that's gradient. Now this is linear. Sometimes when I'm doing spherical shapes, I switch it to radial, and that just, it recenters around the center of the object. So again, if we want to change it, we go over here and we select the gradient tool from the toolbar, and we can adjust it here. There'll be one handle for extending the diameter of it, and this one will change the shape to make it more of an ellipse. So you can control that as well as rotate it however you like, shrink size, put it back to normal there. So yeah, that's radial gradient. You can leave that, it's kind of circular. Yeah, so that's gradient. Click off of it. So some other tips, when you're working with like more complex illustrations and you've got like a lot of things going on, so I'm just going to duplicate this, and say you've got some objects going on all over the place, and this is over here, and you're trying to select, you kind of modularize things. So there's objects over here. What you can do is actually you can just select the objects that you want. Say this is kind of like an area that you want to stay together and style together. You can hit Command G, and what that's going to do is going to group it. So now every time I select one piece of it, all those objects are going to get selected. Now right away, how do you get editing these individually, or how do I undo that if I accidentally did that? All you have to do is select the object that you group together. Command Shift G will ungroup. So that's Command Shift G will ungroup, Command G will group. So again, see, the shapes are individual on their own. So when you group them, so let's group this. Now, let's say I don't want to ungroup them, but I want to work within this new grouping. I just simply double click, and then I'm into the group here, into the group that I created there. So now I'm free to move the shapes around, and in this group, this is a little tip, is that we were talking before about layering and the Command Shift brackets to move forward and backwards, and Command brackets. This is going to work on its own level. So you can see here that I'm moving it back and forth. That is not going to affect when we're going back into the parent layer. So if I double click off the object, that's how you move backwards into the full composition. This acts as a full layer of its own. So I'm going to group these ones here together, Command G. I'm going to group these ones together, Command G. And then what I can do now is, if you'll see, if I'm moving it forward, if I'm moving it forward, you'll notice that it acts as one group. You'll see that it didn't put pieces over top. They act as whole layers. So that's just important to remember when you're doing grouping. If you're trying to get, say I was trying to get this shadow to go over top of this as well, this could not be grouped in itself. I could go into this shape, Command X to cut, and Command Shift V to paste in place, and then it would be on top, but again, it would be its own individual layer and it would not be grouped. So that's just some tips on grouping and layering. I think we're covering a lot of ground here. We can talk about some stroke here. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these guys. Talk about some stroke. So let's get an object in here, and right away this is just filled here because this is X'd out. What I can do is I can switch the two, and a shortcut for selecting, just pressing X will toggle between working on your stroke and working on your fill. So here we have we just have a circle with a stroke. Up in this corner you have your stroke width. So I can just run that up. I can go select something crazy, and that's the stroke for the object. What I do often a lot is there's this profiling for the stroke. So in this case, by default, it's uniform. What you can do here is you can see that I set the profile to be thin, thick, thin, and you see the effect right there. You can select and play around. That's kind of just like a random one, they speak for themselves. You can try out all these ones. Yeah, okay, so a tip on some of this for stroke, you can see over here, if I click the stroke, if I click the stroke here, I get this panel out here, and this is going to give us a bunch of options. So in this one, you can see that I can have the butt cap, the round cap, or the projected. So again, the icons are pretty self-explanatory of what they do exactly. If I have a line here, if I have a line, let's make it a little thicker so you can see exactly what's going on with the cap. So you can see here that my line ends right at the edge of the stroke. So that's this is on the butt cap. If we go over here and we say rounded, you can see there, rounds it off. If we do projected, it just kind of goes with 50% out from the end point. So those are some styling things. If you know if your stroke goes too far and you're trying to get it to come up to the end of that, but it's overhanging like that, you can come up in here and just go butt cap, and then don't have to worry about it. So a little tip on the strokes. Also in here you can do rounded corners. So you can see here, I guess it's a little harder to see with this one. I just pressed A to get to my selector tool, which allows me to change by vertices and by anchor points. Because before, if you press V, you're going to get the regular selector, and it's going to select things by entire objects. So again, shortcut is A, and then you're able to select any of them. And a little tip for A, it is not contained by the layer groupings. If you press A, you'll be able to select any point. And a quick tip on this one is that often what happens is you have an object, and let's just put another object in front of it. Let's switch it there. So say I wanted to select this point back there, that anchor point, but I have A on and it's not selecting, it's always selecting this top layer. What you can do is select the object out here by just clicking on the fill and then selecting the point, and then you're able to manipulate the point that's behind it. So that's a really helpful tip if you're ever frustrated and trying to just, I don't want to move this whole object or change layering, but I want to, either select that point there. It's letting me click it, but it's not letting me move it. You just select the object, go in, click the anchor. Again, if you don't, what happened there was I had the whole object selected, so I just have to click once, and then you'll see the tangents come out, and then I'm able to manipulate it from behind. So that's just a quick tip on selection. Back to stroke. So we have this object, we have this point here. You can see here I made curved corners up in the stroke section. Exactly. So you'll see once I've actually selected an anchor point in here, all these panels go away. You do have to go back, press V, and again they'll still not show. You have to reselect and then click and get into here, so we can change it back to a chiseled corner, round corner, sharp corner. And now for alignment of the stroke on objects that are not enclosed, you can see here it's an open object. You do not get the option to have it align inside or outside, but let's grab an enclosed object, and you can see here now that I have the option to have the stroke be completely contained with inside the object or completely outside the object. So that is stroke. If we want to add dashed lines, you can just select that. You can put your group dashes, you can put your measurements in here if you have specifics, and you can see there that it's displayed by changing your dash lines. So also the option, I guess you'll have to have multiple for that. Yeah, so that is stroke in a nutshell. There's some things to do with alignment. So say I have these two objects and I want them to be centered. Up here you can see that I have all my alignment tools, align horizontally. These are all pretty self-explanatory within themselves. So center is often one. But you'll see here that there's this drop down here. What you can do is align to selection is going to, align to the parent object and align it to it. So you'll see that this stroke didn't move, but the circle did. If we select the circle first, I do believe it might be just to the larger object. But if we wanted to align to the artboard, you select and then it aligns to the artboard, as well as select to key object. Center. Oh yeah, there it moved back. So there, the circle is considered the key object in this case, and you'll see that the angle is aligning to it. So that's the options there. If you're ever, and sometimes you won't be able to see any options if it's, if you're selecting this and you're like, hey, where are my alignment options? You just click this drop down here and go align to artboard, and then you'll get all your regular alignment options. Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of things in this tutorial. Hopefully this is helpful for you. Hopefully you picked up a bunch of tips and tricks along the way. I'm gonna do more of these videos with more information on different areas of Illustrator. Hopefully you have found this helpful. If you want me to cover anything else, just drop me a comment. And I'll hopefully be covering more helpful tips and tricks and more tutorials in the future. So thanks for watching, guys. Check out my website, fullsnackdeveloper.com. Follow me on Instagram at fullsnack_developer. Smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.